Hey, hey, hey! Lord J here, flying solo today. My friend John Power did try to join, but that didn't work the way it was meant to. So I'm just gonna do it alone and say we are now also live over on Facebook. So awesome to be with an interesting bit of time over the last week for me and mine. I don't know about you, but I'm sending love to you and do hope that you are making it through the discomfort of this pregnant pause that is not necessarily stopping anything because life never stops for us. And yet it is time for us to just keep it centered as best as what we can, coming back within. And so I'm going to keep tonight short and sweet. Because that's just what I'm feeling. But I wanted to share something that I had thought of yesterday, actually, which is the fact that afraid and faith are very connected, more so than what we often think. And I hadn't realized the R was in there too, because in my view, as the way I was looking at it last night, which is how we do what we do, was to see afraid and faith as being a D instead of a TH, and an A for the attitude that we, and then ultimately the D is about death and denial, which denial is didn't even know I am lying. So I thought the connection was very significant and profound with that being the case, given that there is space for faith to be present into the now. And so I bring that to you to consider in terms of whether you are choosing to live your life afraid and letting fear of death keep you at a lower level within the hierarchy of motivational needs, or whether you are allowing respect to be what drives us to actually not deny life and to do what it means to be fully you. And I see a lot of people still wearing facades, which are seen to be masks. And I simply have to ask, why? Are you afraid to live, or are you afraid to die? Because at the end of the day, I think that what is most profound was A Tale Within the Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, a fantastic read about, it's a fable of a boy that follows his dreams. And it takes him around the world to be seen, not per se by others, but by himself. And so in that tale, though, I say because it rhymes, and you know I love that. And I hope that you're having a good time. So thank you for the love. And please do share this message if it resonates with you with someone who would benefit from asking themselves whether they are living in fear, false emotion appearing real, or whether they are choosing to live in faith. And there was a camel driver, or one who was leading those through the desert, who said that when he eats, when he walks, when he rides, when he does anything, he does it fully. And Jim Rohn has a similar story that I'll mention after. But what he also said is that today is as good as any to die, because ultimately, if we have lived fully, we have nothing to regret, which I believe is what the R in afraid signifies and stands for. And I remember a couple of weeks ago when my beloved cat, my wee lion, my feline, Julius Romeo, was unwell. He had been attacked, and his bladder, in fact, was filling because he had a urinary issue that I wasn't fully aware of, though I knew there was something. But he was old enough that I knew he wouldn't make it through surgery specifically, which is why on Saturday, the 9th of April, he lost his life. And before that, it was nice to have been able to be with him. He wasn't in pain, he was still purring, he was still walking around, he just couldn't go to the bathroom, and I didn't know that it was the front and not the back. I thought that was what it was, but I remember being with him fully present. And I wasn't fully present because I hadn't stopped smoking at that time. But I remember putting my arms around my little man and holding him in my energy field and just sending love and healing as best as what I could. And I did. I just remembered him looking at me like, oh, you humans. And it was just so sacred and so profound because he was fully present. He loved, so there, so on point with me. He had no regrets. And I think having lost another pet while in England, who I had given as much as I could have to, and though I grieved his loss for a week or two, I knew that I had given him the very best, and my ex at the time hadn't. He was working and busy and all the things that we do to not be present, and the reasons, and no shame. And, I had a nice life while there because of what he did. I remember the anger that he had towards me because he wasn't fully present for that dog. So he felt like he had lost out and an opportunity to be present with that which he had thought would be around for a long time. And I found it very interesting because I had no regrets because I had been present with that pet and he had not, and he had regrets. And while I grieved, I did not. And so it just brought me back to being with Julius and not being fully present, but being present as best as what I could in the moment, even though I had altered myself beforehand to be there with him and then try to command presence and power into the moment to be able to shower him then with that love that I felt back and that he knew he had. But it was just, oh, you humans, for altering yourself. What is the need? Why do you need to make doing nothing something by altering yourself so that it's complicated and then you have to work to be? As I believe is part of the need so many have, including myself, my former self, I would say, because I am intentionally changing my self image to no longer allow that practice of placing my power outside of the now to be part of my life. And weed was my thing to do so. And don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming perfection. I don't desire it though now because I have surrendered that and let that be part of the former self image I had of myself as one who smoked. And now I choose to be one who does not because I am working to clear up my aura. Not to say this is the book, be all and end all book, but I did read this last year while I was exploring the teachings of the Ascended Masters, which I now see just to be Summit Lighthouse, and ultimately Ascended Masters are ultimately any who rose above and were able to bring more of themselves with them. Though I don't know that full process, I'm still learning, and I have come to believe that self mastery is what we need to bring ourselves into the moment so that we can actually collect more of our soul fragments to be able to go into a future moment. And now, then, that will still then be now, but to be able to call back more of ourselves. And I make that disclaimer because when I was introduced to those teachings, it was teachings of the ascended masters. But then I realized, okay, wait, those are just the teachings from one mystery school that is said to be superior, just in the same way that the Bible, which you can break down to be buying bull, BS, belief systems, a different way. That is to say, it's controversial, I know, but ultimately, we have to really start recognizing that when we pray, what we pray to can pray on us, because we then turn the A to an E for the energy that we give to that which we pray to. And with that particular book, there's great information. I need to go into it more. And then Wheel of Life, by Wheels of Life, Judith. Judith is her last name, Anodea, I believe it is. I can't remember how to spell it specifically, but Wheels of Life is a book also about the aura. And I'm bringing in the aura because it's the energy field around us, the Viracocha, as the Muneki writes say, that you bring down the Viracocha around you and then ground it, so that then you fully open your energy field and you actually place it over the one you are healing and offering the healing rights to, which are the first rights that you can actually use to activate the healing capacity in those who are willing and open and ready for it, as I have been doing in the month, in the last month, once again, after having started the process and received the first four in 2015 when I was still living in England. And I had seen that they were offered here in Canada while I was then living there. And so then I found a shaman there that would be able to offer me that which I felt called to. And in those first four, actually, the shaman was very inappropriate with me and actually attached psychically to my third eye, because those were cords that needed to be cut in the ceremony that I did on Saturday, to receive four of them. And the first, the week before Julius passed, that I had received the first three, in fact. And each time it was needing to work through the trauma of having been violated in that sacred relationship where I had trusted one I didn't know to uphold and maintain a level of professionalism I expected because of what I had thought he had attained, given what he had advertised. And what I found after waking up and seeing him next to me in this porn star type pose and lustfully looking at me as I came out of the sacred experience of receiving the rights, it was a complete violation. And then I had to work through that on Saturday. And I say this at 8:16, which is an 888. And truly, I say this because it is abundant. Eights are about abundance. And I offer that experience because I had to work through my own experience of releasing that. And I found a shamaness that I trust. And so I am willing to go through the experience. And then also she's willing to be slower with me, because once you've been violated, you have to work through that in order to then get back to the present, which very much ties into what first started this episode with afraid versus faith. Because there was fear in me, false emotion appearing real of having had the violation. And then when going through the rite where porn star pose was brought into an experience I had not expected any kind of sexual energy in, and then to have to not have to, I chose to, having to, that obligation, and then feeling like you have no choice as a victim experience, that I just offer the remembrance or the reminder of that to you. When we blame, complain, justify, or deny, we are not in our power because we are out of the moment in a not now experience that we are bringing into now, whether it be the future or the past. Fear takes us out of what will always last, which is the now. It's the only one we get to be in. Um, it was profound to have to let that go and be supported by a fellow woman who was able to sever the cords that were in all these years later to my third eye, and then to be able to receive the rites again, because the Muneiki rites are love rites. Essentially, it's a form of Peruvian shamanism that was brought over by Alberto Villoldo to the West, because we, the Western people, for sure, are in great need of opening our hearts and actually reconnecting to the fact that we are the earth keepers. We are the ones who came here to walk tenderly in this place and to not hurt, but to heal, and to recognize that not only do hurting people hurt people, as we so oftentimes say, but healed people heal people, not claiming to be healed fully, working on that process, and yet also being willing to transform my self image and say, I have not been perfect. I am not perfect. I am perfectly imperfect, as are you. And if we are willing to do that for ourselves, to say, hey, not perfect, but willing to work on that, I believe there is so much growth that comes with that level of vulnerability. And so within our auras, which the Wiracocha, that's like the energy field, and the Muneiki rites are actually seeds of empowerment that are sown within the luminous energy field of the light being incarnate that we are. And so the first rites that I received, what benefits I did receive, I did not continue to feed with the fire of sacred ceremony in order to gestate and nurture and foster the development of those seeds, which could then turn into corn, so to speak, as we become corn. It is not about growing corn at all. It is about growing whole and complete humans, not just the hue of man, which is just one aspect, but the whole of us, the holy human, the ones that we came here to be and can see ourselves to be if we are willing to be the eye mages of our own self-image, and to break things down to the ridiculous until then we say, hey, there is great meaning to being afraid, and the attitude, the response, the reaction, noticing the difference. Response giving us the ability to breathe through, call ourselves back to the moment, so that we do not just react the same way we did in the past, but in fact, we create a new response. And then the D for death. We are experiencing a death cult, which is why we are taught to cover ourselves and to not be fully authentically ourselves. And if we do, oh my, well then you can receive a summons for speaking at a rally, such as I did last April. In fact, and have been dealing with via lawful notice ever since, which May 4th at 11 a.m. I will receive your prayers graciously and gratefully, because I will be standing as a woman in my private capacity with all rights reserved, and I will be collecting evidence for the Superior Court that I will be taking the claim I have made against the man acting as prosecutor too, because he is bringing a false claim into a public court against me, the woman, because I know who I am, and I know that the summons was delivered to a dead one, because that is all that can be done with the dead. Yes, summon them. Well, I am not one who can be summoned, but you could call and I would answer. The old world will fall. We know. And it will hurt many, and we will lose many as it does. And there could be great fear in that process, and there will, because those who are dear to our hearts and souls, if there's too much unloving light trying to rise, to be bright, it will shock the heart and may not make it through, which is why we must start working through the emotions. The aura, keep it clear. The Wiracocha, keep it pure, to be able to be fully here, to remember who we are, to not be afraid, to say, just because you wear a suit that you paid a lot of money to be able to wear, the title, I am not afraid, and I will stand face to face with the man, not the suit. You can take it off for all I care. I will stand and I will say, you are causing me harm, loss, and fraud, not keeping the peace. Those are the tenets of the common law. Faith, not faith, but it is to say, no, it is not okay any longer for men and women to wear suits and act in ways that are against and contrary to our divine nature, to not care for the earth, because that is heart in a different order. And we have been messed up as a collective. Then we use our noises. Noise is unintentional sound, and yet all of that allows us to ground the energy. So I whistle to clear the air. There. Did you feel it? We can be afraid, or we can be faithful. We can respond in a new way, or we can react and do the thing that others would hope we do in their play, for that is what an act is. And Shakespeare said, we are all but actors on the stage of life. Pretending to be other than we are, well, that is what we do when we take on a personage. When we take on a title or a status that makes us think we're better than or less than someone else. No, you are enough as you are, as am I. It is only when we believe the lie that we then become deceived and become afraid, because we fall into the land of liabilities. The ability to lie is where all of those who have sold out are living currently. Their lives are based on the lie. And then in order to maintain their livelihoods, they must maintain that lie, forgetting that causing harm to a fellow man or woman ultimately is karmic consequences the man or woman causing that harm pays, such as soldiers, police officers, anyone that takes a life, not police officers, that is less likely, however it does happen, but soldiers, for instance, are carrying arms so that the hands cannot hold pens to actually change that which then becomes the pandemic that is aligned to agendas contrary to our nature, divine nature, our ability to be ourselves. That is the land of liabilities. And then it is the men and women that lose their lives and also take others that pay. And there are great karmic consequences from an energetic perspective. The entities I mentioned about that which we pray to we become prey to. What we pray to with an A, we become prey to with an E, because then our energy becomes the offering. And if you look at the tradition of the Christmas tree being the pine tree, being the spine of the tree that we put the gifts at the bottom of for Satan to come down and steal the energy of those who we are so excited to give to because we love the tradition and the myths and the BS. Not popular. But then, did we come here to be liked, or did we come here to love? I feel the fight in my voice and in my words and in the conflictual nature of that which I share for you to discern what it means to you, what it means for you, and then to say what you will do with it this day and others also. but remembering now is the only one we ever have. The now moment is all there ever is, the new orderly world. Jim Rohn, earlier I had mentioned that he had a similar story to what in The Alchemist, the camel driver or the caravan driver, that's it, had shared. And Jim Rohn had said that, when you work at the office, you got so much to do, and it's like you got family, and so you want to go to the beach with the family, and so then you bring your work to the beach, and then you're on the beach with your family, but you're doing work on the beach. You're not at the beach, you're not at the office, but you're not with your family, and it's like you're doing your work on the beach, and then you go back to the office, and then you want to be at the beach with your family, but now you're in the office and you're trying to do the work that you were trying to do there. And it's just like, when you're at the beach, be at the beach. When you're at work, be at work. But if we're trying to divide ourselves, isn't there the good book, the Bible, that says, what does the Bible say? Does it matter? I am not religious. And someone in one of the YouTube comments a while back had actually said religion is religion. And it makes so much sense because we become legions based in BS, belief systems that keep us divided. And what I was going to say is that a house divided in itself falls. I don't know whether that's the biblical quote specifically or not, but it is true that this is my house and your body is yours. The Eden, energy den of you and me, each of us individually, we are responsible for the house that we keep and the company that we keep and those who we allow to traipse through that which we have command over. And I did a short a while back last week, and it was the difference between being in control and being in charge. We are energetic beings. There is a charge to us. And then there is the con of consciousness or conscience, which has been lost within the science, what is science but the best hypothesis that's been proven until a better one comes along to disprove that and replace it. And then we say, oh, the conscience. Conscience is knowing truth, knowing what we stand for. Because if we do not know what we stand for, we risk falling for anything, correct? So, a house divided on itself falls. And when the temples of us are divided, we're not strong or able to stand the way that we could if we were not divided within ourselves. And if we were not divided within ourselves, we would not be easily divided without, because we would have nothing to prove, everything to lose, nothing to lose at the same time. No thing, nothing. It is time for us to get back to the fact that we are the prize. Life is the prize. Being ourselves fully is the prize. Not being afraid, and instead being full of faith, without that needing to be religious or connected to a mystery school of any kind. Because the ascended ones, the ones who came here and mastered themselves, are no longer in flesh. There will be no second coming of the same man who wasn't even known as that man while he lived. His name was other than that, correct? I believe that is fact. And then if we actually go back to the fact that he was converted into one eye shy of the French meaning of je suis, meaning I am. And he is said to have said, I am the way, I am the light. Well, is he saying he was? Or was his message misconstrued to then actually mean that it was the word I am itself? That because we're looking to him, the H-I-M instead of the H-Y-M-N, to come back and save us, savior, save I, or what? The BS that we will defend and give our lives for, and then in the end take up karmic debts and consequences to defend, your choice. It's your life. But live it fully. Be present and recognize all of those emotions that come up that were suppressed, compressed, repressed, depressed, denied, rejected, tried to hide from, run away from, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fornicate, all of the distractions that ultimately our nervous system go into the reactionary experience of, because we're unsettled, because we're not present like my cat helped me see I needed to be, as to helped me make the shift. So God bless that little man. I'm so grateful. He chose me the first day that we met 14 years ago. March 23rd was when I met Julius Romeo. And he fell asleep in my arms. And I called him a prince the first moment that I had met him, even though I just went in for hamster drops for my hamster at the time. Then I saw this little cute gray and white kitten, one arm pierced against the woman and the other draped, looking at me like, "Who are you? I'm familiar." And then when it was my turn to get to hold him, because how couldn't you hold a precious little kitten in a pet store where you could? And then he fell asleep, and I knew he had found his home, even though I was in the middle of my essays for my English degree at the time, and it was right before exams, and I had no interest or no need for a cat, but he chose me. And so Valentine's Day this year, I said to him, "Thank you for choosing me." And I meant every word of it, even though I had another there who had not chose me. And unfortunately for him, he loses the opportunity to be loved by me fully. But that ultimately, I got my heart back that same day, metaphorically, symbolically. And yet it was huge. It was so huge in a symbolic way that is not the day to share that story. But it is to say that the little man who chose me, named Julius Romeo, because I changed his name and the title doesn't matter, but he helped me say, I am choosing to be better. I am choosing to become the image of my life and to fully live. And I have been choosing so in many ways. And that vice kept me from being so nice to myself. And so all of it is beautiful and also scary and cutting at times too. So I let that be okay. And I say, that's going to be all for today. And I appreciate you for tuning in and would love to know what this message means to you, what it means for you, and what you're going to do with it. I hope that you will choose to see what it means to be afraid as different from what it means to be faithful, full of faith. Find your tribe, understand what's yours. Love what arises because it's showing up in the now, because you're ready to face it emotionally, energetically, spiritually, mindfully. You can do it. It's showing up because you're ready to face the pattern in order to change it. Otherwise, you're going to get an even more intense teacher and it's going to hurt even more. And that sucks, to have to go through it the hard way. And yet so often, if we have those denials within us of didn't even know I am lying, even though the K is silent and the N just fits and sits nicely. But if we've got those in there, we don't love what arises, and then we get a harder teacher, which is why the other L of the full practice is let go of your attachment to the not now. Any time other than now, we don't have power. And all of the systems where the man acting as prosecutor, bringing a false claim in front of a public court against me, the woman, that did nothing wrong. There was no victim. And I have sent in 17 lawful notices and made a claim in the year it has taken to clear my name, which there are joinders with, because there are tricks every step of the way in the land of liabilities. For they have practiced, for that is what life is, and they practice law to be able to deceive men and women to drop a knee and then be other than we authentically are. Because it is only the person that was summoned. And yet the woman shows, and then they say, oh, maxim of law, he who is ignorant of the law, shame on him. Well, paraphrased entirely, not even close. And yet close enough to know that is not right. And there is a great fight, there must be, within themselves to actually do what they do, to screw good men and women who knew, maybe not, against an act I didn't ever agree to play in, except, in fact, we are brought into it until then we claim the right not to play the part and say, I am what I am, a woman, in my private capacity with all rights reserved, which is higher in the hierarchy than the government that was created to serve us, which is why the ones that work for the bigger corporation of the federal, provincial, municipal governments are public servants meant to serve the public, except for the private is then converted and perverted into the public, which is why it is a mixed war. And that land of liabilities does not need to be where we stay if we know how to step into the land of benefits, which I am working on doing myself. So after May 4th, I'll have more confidence to be able to say, hey, this is the way that I have learned to do what I have done. And then we can go from there, because there has been quite a lot of fun in this year while I have learned how not to fear those who are bullying good men and women and being bullied themselves too. But barratry is no excuse, nor is it for a law professional to screw men and women into tickets for crimes that were actually not aligned to the truth of causing harm. And now it is just about profits over people, which when I got locked up in the mental institution in 2019 because I called the police to report the system was corrupt and they were in on it, which I don't recommend. And I learned then it was not a good idea to call your bully and say, you're bullying and it's not good. Take me to your leaders and I can help turn this ship around, which was my ego trying to make shit happen. And I say shit intentionally because what I have come to see is how fear and faith can be the F in the shift depending on which direction we go. So don't make that call unless you choose to, but choose for yourself. And also recognize that the system save yourself significant time, energy, money. The men and women that are bringing false claims against me in the name of the law, they're trying to put me in the land of liability where they know the rules and we who have not been schooled in those rules don't. But in having claimed the right to be a woman in my private capacity with all rights reserved, and also claim the right to lawfully self-govern, mean it's a de facto government that is imposing its rule onto one who has claimed the right to self-govern. So it's all so not okay. And when I made that call that day and found out that the system eats people, and part of my thing was the fact I had come into the awareness of the pattern and paradigm of profits over people being how so many are operating, and I had been used and abused and still fooled at times And yet, whew, yep, nope, bringing it back and saying, in fact, I choose to do things differently because now I value me. And I hope you will too. Value you and me if you choose to. But if not, that's not why I do this now. It's because Monday nights, 8 p.m., is when Katia Palmieri and I normally do this, and she was unable to make it tonight for her own reasons. And so I wish us all to send them love and love and her family, and ultimately, yeah, family matters. And we need to prioritize that and also recognize that family is not always just blood because families have been divided and belief systems are what are allowing the conquering. And it is through lack of respect and relationships with no to little respect for me are ones I don't choose to engage in, which is very unfortunate. But there, that's the boundary. If you don't respect me, you don't get me. And so I hope that you will be willing to take a stand for respect and command the inner awareness, breathing into the moment, inner individual needs necessitate emotional resilience, resonance, and respect. Respect was the missing piece for me all these years. I didn't fully get it. I just gave it and didn't always get it back, and even continued to give it when I wasn't getting it back until, in fact, I learned how much that cost. And now I say, no, not anymore. So it's been a tough lesson, I'll admit, and yet it's been an absolute blessing. So I hope you've enjoyed the show this evening. Would love to know what it means to you and for you, and how you are going to command respect for yourself, first and foremost, from yourself, starting there. Because that is the only way I can set my standards higher on the outside, by respecting myself more. And my little man, Julius Romeo, helped me see how that was not part of vital relationships, that some no longer exist as they did. And that is a shame and loss, and yet also a great gift because of what it helps both parties know could have been and won't be seen because the lack of respect that ultimately drove a wedge between. Yeah, so I don't got no more to say on that topic today other than namaste, namago. I hope you have a great one, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about the show. Toodaloo, RJ, namaste. Thank you.